This meeting is being recorded.
So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Today, we're going to be doing a Public Land Corps Non-Competitive Hiring Authority webinar. I'm just going to give a brief kind of agenda. So we have Crystal Gales here, who's an HR specialist. She will give an overview of Public Land Corps PLC, going through the infographic and also talking about how to find PLC jobs on USA Jobs. Then we will hear from an alum, Allie Peterson, who will talk about her experience using PLC to find a job. And then we're going to open it up to any questions that you may have. Chelsea Bidding, our partner, will be taking questions at the end. And you can feel free to put any questions in the chat as we kind of go through this webinar. So I will turn it over to you, Crystal, whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Crystal Gales. Is my screen still sharing? Okay, the highlight went from around it, so I wasn't sure. And I just wanted to say that I'm an HR specialist with the Office of Workforce and Inclusion. I've been with the Park Service for almost about 20 years now. And one of the areas that I cover is the Public Land Corps Non-Competitive Hiring Eligibility. And I am happy to be here to share some information with you about the program in general, and then the Hiring Authority and how you all can use that to search for jobs on USA Jobs. So just as a brief overview, we're going to be talking about that Public Land Corps program, the Non-Competitive Hiring Authority, and searching for USA Jobs. And I'll begin by covering the Non-Competitive Hiring Authority and the process that needs to be followed to ensure that you're able to use it. But first, I wanted to go over the infographic, which I think was shared with you earlier, just so you can kind of get an understanding of how this all fits together in a quick look. So at first, you have what the Public Land Corps program is. You go into the age requirements for the actual Public Land Corps program, which is the veterans up to 35 and between the ages of 16 and 30 if you're a non-veteran. And then after you get through the actual program, PLC participants who worked the 640 hours on the appropriate conservation project, that's when you get into the non-competitive eligibility that you receive after you complete that requirement. So going through that, you'll be tracking your work hours during that process. You'll get a signed certificate of eligibility, as well as you'll have to complete your work hour verifications form. So all of that is kind of done as you're going through your internship. And then at the end, when you're finished everything, you get your certificate. And that certificate and work hour verification form is basically what you submit with your application when you're applying to jobs on USA Jobs. It talks about on the last, section, how you do the search in USA Jobs and about your 2-year eligibility period. So that's just a quick overview. It kind of gives you a heads up of, planning what you need to do and helping you through the process. And since you are all already members of the Public Land Corps, you probably already know a lot of the information about the program. But as a refresher, the Public Land Corps is a work and education program for individuals between the ages that I mentioned earlier. It's run by the Department of Interior with association with eligible youth conservation organizations and service corps. And the objective is the rehabilitation and restoration of public land resources and infrastructure. There are 2 other agencies, the Department of Agriculture and Department of Commerce, that have PLC programs, but they should not be confused with the one at DOI, as they have some variations in how they're set up and run. I do want to note that while PLC members work alongside civil service federal employees, you don't actually fall into that category, at least not yet. The PLC non-competitive hiring eligibility that we'll talk about offers one way for former PLC members to potentially become civil service federal employees. So as a PLC member, some of your responsibilities include ensuring that you're maintaining that detailed log of work. And that should include your start and end dates on your projects, the organization, the number of hours worked. And this is all done on the participant work hours verification form and the work log that we'll discuss later. And you might need to or want to coordinate with your youth or conservation corps in some circumstances, or the NPS youth program coordinators to obtain the work hours verification sheet. And we'll discuss that during the PLC Hiring Authority section. Oops, I think I skipped. And again, as part of the internship, you do need to complete your project hours on your appropriate conservation project. So that's one of the key responsibilities in the program, especially if you want to use that non-competitive eligibility. And here's a list of the current NPS National Regional Youth Program contacts and their information. The only change I would note is that currently the WASO Youth Program Coordinator, one of the leads in that area, George McDonald's on detail. So there is someone acting in that position. Hello. Does someone have a question, or they just want to mute? Okay. So now let's switch over to the PLC Non-Competitive Hiring Authority. No, it's closely related to the PLC non-competitive. It's closely related to the PLC program, but they are different. It's not the same. One of the major differences that we get a lot of questions about is that age restriction part that we talked about on the infographic and earlier. While the PLC Hiring Authority does not mention any age restrictions, the program participants do have to meet those age requirements that we mentioned. So that's important to note there. The PLC Hiring Authority actually allows the Secretary, Department of the Interior to provide former members of the Public Land Corps with non-competitive hiring status. The former member must have served a minimum of 640 hours of satisfactory service on an appropriate conservation project with that qualified youth or conservation corps that we mentioned, that included at least 120 hours on or in support of eligible service lands. Now, when we talk about appropriate conservation projects, we're referring to any project for the conservation, restoration, construction of natural, cultural, archaeological, recreational, scenic resources. And appropriate conservation projects must have been accomplished while you were a participant serving in a qualified youth or conservation corps. And PLC projects are done on or in support of federal lands. And so you might have other conservation projects that you work on that might meet that definition of appropriate conservation project, but might not necessarily be fitting under the PLC category. Again, for more details on this, you might want to closely work with your regional youth program contact or your core member contact, just ensure that your project is appropriate for your qualified youth or conservation corps. And one of the key things I always mention to people is that communication with all parties involved ahead of time is what helps make the process of tracking and maintaining your hours manageable. So start tracking early, start finding out who those contacts are. If you have any questions, make sure you understand the process and things that you need to do. And when using your certificate of non-competitive eligibility that you get at the end of your service, you must have your appointment effective within 2 years of the date of the end of your service with the Public Land Corps. And again, the effective date has to be when you're coming on board into that federal government position, not when you're applying for the position. So we just want to make sure that it may take a couple of months for a position to close, a selection to be made. So you want to keep your non-competitive eligibility period in mind when you're applying for positions that close around that time when your eligibility is set to expire. So make sure you give yourself enough time. In order to use your non-competitive eligibility, you must apply to a vacancy, also known as a job opportunity or JOA announcement. And in accordance with the regulations of the PLC, in order to apply for the position, you must be that former PLC member. So when you're getting your certificate, they're not going to give it to you prior to you completing that service. Before we get into the paperwork needed, those signed verification forms and certificate of eligibilities, I can take a quick second if there are some questions, Chelsea, or anyone that needs to be answered.
So we have a couple questions, just real quick. Yeah, if you want to go for them. I was about to answer one in the chat, so thank you.
Okay.
The first question comes from Addison, who asked, are the 640 hours required to be consecutive? Do all hours need to be recorded on the same project/job, or can several positions be used to fill the required hours?
You can accumulate your hours over different projects. So they don't need to be on the same project. It might be that you completed 200 hours and then you went to another, I guess, site or something that doesn't qualify. And then you come back and you're on another conservation project with us or one of the other bureaus that counts. You count all of that time together. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a couple other questions of things that are to come, but I will say the next question, will our internships fulfill the requirement of 640 hours if you're regular interns who may or may not have an extension? So it just, I guess I'll answer this one. It depends on how long your internship is. Everyone on this call, I guess I just want to make that clear. We have people on this call from all different internship programs. So we have folks from LHIP and Mosaics. We have scientists in parks and who all have various term lengths. Generally, the 640 hours equals out to about 16 weeks on average in a park. So this kind of goes along with the previous question. If you have an internship that's 12 weeks, you will not earn the 640 hours, but you can use multiple positions. It doesn't need to be earned consecutively.
Right. I had a question about where do you find the forms? We are currently in the process of finalizing and updating our forms. There was a previous work hours form that looks a little different. Again, that will be something that you can reach out to your partner organization or the site where you are. I believe the youth programs coordinators can also provide those for you. So there's a number of ways to get them. I think, Chelsea, you might have mentioned that you all would probably give these once they were finalized to your participants.
Yes.
So
yeah,
okay.
Once we have the forms finalized, we'll be sending them out. We're just sharing them now on the webinar today, but once they're finalized, we may have some last tweaks to make. We'll be sending them out to folks.
Right. And we're going to cover the USA Jobs filter. I see that as a question. If after 2 years you're still in school, does eligibility expire? It does expire after that 2-year period from your last PLC service. So it's not extended by anything. So keep that in mind. And there's no regulation to extend your eligibility.
That's all the questions I see.
Okay.
Move along, Crystal. Thanks.
So I'm going to move on to the forms. As we mentioned, we are in the process of updating, tweaking a little bit of the form, but in general, these are what they're going to look like. And this is a good reference of what you can expect to have to get completed. Is there another question? Okay. So this is the participant work hours verification form that I mentioned. We try to call out and clarify what information was completed by who on the sheet. And it will also have additional instructions for certain areas that might be a little, ambiguous. You have your name, your number, your address, that you completed the work log, which is on the next screen, and it's going to be attached to the work hours verification form. The partner organization that you are working with. There's some technical information such as the task agreement number that they'll have to provide. The supervisor of the park where you're located, and then there's information about the actual projects that you're doing. So on your internship, you might be doing different tasks, and you can consider that internship as one kind of project, and you want to put that project start and end date. You want to note whether or not the project was done on certain lands, whether or not they're qualifying for PLC, basically. And so we're going to clarify that there. We're actually going to put PLC hours. And then there's a supervisor section where they're completing that your performance was satisfactory, and signing off on the form. So you guys, just to recap, are completing the top portion there, and then there's other parties that are completing those bottom two. So this is what you will have to complete as you go through your internship. And so you want to make sure, and we're going to go back and clarify the dates. I think we gave some examples here that aren't applicable. It's probably going to be at a weekly level that you're going to want to explain your work duties and how they related to an appropriate conservation project. And we have an example there. You'll want to put your location where you did the work and then the hours work. So you're going to be doing that for every week so that there's enough detailed information for the regional youth programs person to certify and give you your certificate at the end of your service. And this is the PLC Certificate of Eligibility. Upon completion of your form and all of your service, this will be issued to you from the Regional Youth Program Coordinator after all of the information has been verified. We will probably update this a little bit as well to ensure that it's clear on when the dates need to be completed, because again, you can't actually get this certificate until after you are a former member and have completed your service. I know a lot of people try to get them early, but you do have 2 years to use your eligibility. So you'll definitely have time from when you finish your service to actually use it to apply for positions. Okay, and just really quickly, I'm going to go over navigating USA Jobs with PLC. It's not going to go into too much information about the creating the account and all of the additional assessments and things you'll see in the vacancy announcement. Right now, I just want to kind of cover how to actually search for those jobs and some of the documentation that you'll need to submit in order to use your non-competitive eligibility. So I do want to point out that PLC, in terms of finding jobs on USA Jobs, PLC is only accepted on specific job announcements. It's not something that's included in every job announcement right now. And so a good filter for your USA Job search will be the Department of Interior and searching Public Land Corps, including the quotations, because you want to make sure that you're finding things that are all together Public Land Corps, as opposed to the individual words Public Land and Corps. So this is the home page of USA Jobs. And from here, you'll be able to create that account that I mentioned that you'll need in order to apply to job opportunities. It explains USA Jobs features. They do have something called hiring paths. And those were helped to assist job seekers in finding announcements in their search for positions that meet their self-identified statuses. So you may or may not want to filter on hiring paths. I suggest just using the keywords and the filter for the agency. These are listed, I guess, in different areas, and I'll show you that here. I've starred some of the areas where you might see Public Land Corps, Special Hiring Authorities paths, federal employee paths, because that actually also includes paths for people with non-competitive eligibilities. And so PLC is a non-competitive eligibility, and so it might be in jobs that are listed as federal employees. And those that are open to the public, sometimes they will be concurrent accepting applications for those with public land corps non-competitive eligibility. So these are just some of the past where you could find that public land corps. And so this is just a screenshot of filtering by public land corps and Department of the Interior. Right now, it looks like there's 65 jobs. And if you select one of them, such as the physical scientist, you'll see under the clarification from the agency section that it mentions that they're accepting applications from those who are eligible under PLC. So you'll definitely want to look for that, those keywords. And when you're applying for the job, as always, you want to read the entire vacancy announcement. Some of the required documents that you're going to need, whether or not they ask for them, will be that PLC work hours verification form and the PLC Certificate of Eligibility, along with your resume and other application documents that are required in the required document section. And announcements may require a performance appraisal or an explanation if you don't have one. For example, we've been telling people with PLC non-competitive eligibility who obviously may not have been in a federal position and don't have a performance appraisal. This is an example of some of the language you can include. And I do believe that in the past and currently, there's an accomplishment letter that you receive at the end of your service that you can include. And so here I just have a couple of links that are helpful for job seekers that you might find useful. And I don't know if it's been asked, but we will share the slides at the end of the presentation.
Yes, so Crystal, I think that's it, right?
Yes, yep. So we're going to do additional questions after the speaker, but are there any that I can answer right now?
There's one question, there are a couple questions I think can wait. We'll give Crystal a break, but there is a good one here. Crystal, that I would like you to answer now. It says, does PLC give you a leg up or some kind of preference in open to the public positions?
It doesn't give you a leg up. It's another applicant source that hiring managers can use to select from. So I will say that we are moving away from doing all sources announcements where you have announcements for those with special hiring authorities and open to the public. And so if you see that they are accepting applications from those with special hiring authorities for those that are all sources announcements, that is a separate list that the selecting official can use to select from. It's a non-competitive list. So you could call it a leg up because it's not competitive. There's different rules and you're not competing with the general public.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. We'll give you a break.
Oh, no worries. I'm used to talking for the hour, so.
I think let's transition to Allie. I think we've heard a lot of great information kind of about what PLC is. Hopefully you guys have a better understanding. And then if Allie could show herself and we'll let her speak for a little bit. So Allie is a former intern. She was part of a program that does not, it's been morphed into the Scientists in Parks program, but it was called Geoscientists in the Parks. And she used her PLC Hiring Authority to be hired. So Chanel, can we spotlight Allie? And then Crystal, I think we're good on your slides.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. My name's Allie Peterson, like Chelsea mentioned. I was a geoscientist in the parks intern from 2016 to 2018, somewhere in there. I actually did 4 different internship terms, so it's been a minute. And my positions were a little bit different. I didn't work on the ground in a park like I think a lot of you are doing. I was hired into the Washington office, WASO, to help with BioBlitz and community science. And then there was an open position, federal position, and it was in the middle of a hiring freeze. So they hired me as another GIP to keep me on. And then eventually I was hired, currently a biological science technician with the Biological Resources Division. So we're a partner division with where Chelsea sits. And I'm actually based in Fort Collins, Colorado. And so I have an office job supporting wildlife health professionals. We have a bunch of wildlife veterinarians and disease ecologists, and some other techs that I work with. So I do sort of all of the on the ground or on the computer paperwork and record keeping for them. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. I do have a permanent position, which is amazing. It's kind of what we all strive for. So I wish all of my good luck onto you all. So in terms of PLC and how that was used, this program has come a long way. We didn't have a webinar like this when I was going to use my PLC. It was literally like emailing Ernestine and emailing like individuals being like, how do we do this? And everyone's like, I don't know, let's figure it out. So obviously use the resources you have. That's my biggest piece of advice. This webinar is great. It sounds like all the support you all get from Chelsea and your different program leads is amazing. So lean into them. They know the players better than anyone, and people who might be hiring or this or that. So definitely lean into your resources. That's been huge. Even some of the webinars and things that Crystal alluded to, how to write a resume and things like that. For PLC specifically, I mean, again, she highlighted a lot of the things I was going to talk about. Record keeping is really, really important. I even at the beginning of my internship term sort of mapped out, if I work 8 hours a day for my 12 weeks or whatever, am I going to get there? But be sure to budget in, like, are you going on vacation? Are you going to miss a day? Because I got to the end of one of my internship terms and realized I hadn't factored in a vacation, and then I didn't meet my full hours and didn't get my education award that term. So just start early, keep track of your hours, and yeah, budget in some of those incidental things like vacation or sick time or whatever that looks like for y'all with your supervisors. I kept like a spreadsheet of just the hours I worked every day and was able to then, oh, I left 2 hours early this day, so I'll work 2 more hours the next week or whatever. So just being really diligent with your record keeping is crucial, because trying to pull it all together at the end and realize, what did I do this week or what did I do that week will drive you crazy, and will make you not want to use this hiring authority. So just start early, keep all your stuff. I talked with my supervisor, my my work lead, my supervisor, weekly, daily, about what my schedule is going to look like. And it sounds like they have great record keeping tools now. Again, I use my own spreadsheet. So it sounds like they've come a long way there. And in terms of using the PLC to get hired, again, my situation was very unique in that I had, one position that I was applying for and hoping to use my PLC. I wasn't sort of searching USA jobs to find anything that would take my PLC. I had a specific position in mind, and got that position because of the experience I'd gained from being an intern with the same program. So unfortunately, I can't speak a lot to that. But yeah, use the keyword searching and just really highlight, like, overhype the impact you have and you are having on parks. There's those of us that now sit in an office, somewhere a ways away from parks, telling you and teaching y'all how to do this stuff, but you're really making a difference on the ground. So when you're writing your resume or, cover letters or anything like that, and talking about your experience on your work logs, like, really overhype it. Like, it might not seem like a big deal to you, but on the ground, it makes a huge difference. And for someone reading your resume, it could be the tipping point for you. Yeah, I don't have fancy slides or anything. That's kind of my experience. Again, it's pretty unique, but happy to take any questions and be a resource. I can be a resource for you all moving forward now. So yeah, feel free, Chelsea or whoever, to share my contact info. I can help with little questions or existential, what do I do next?
Yeah, Allie, that was so great. If you want to, you can just drop your email in the chat so everyone has it and they can just reach out to you directly. I think that would be really helpful.
Perfect. Yep, I'll do that right now.
I have a couple notes I want to, do you have anything else you want to say, Allie?
Nope, nothing else prepared. So I'll just
Okay.
chime in if you need me to.
I want to hit on some of the things that Allie said, but before I do that, again, just a reminder on this call, I just see some questions coming through in the chat and I just don't want to confuse folks. There are multiple internship programs on this webinar. So if you are confused by something that someone says by timekeeping or this about education award, that may not apply to you. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. Don't get freaked out if you see something and you're like, I've never heard of that before. I don't know what this is. That's okay. There are different programs. They use different timekeeping things, or they've kind of got different benefits. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind as we go forward with the question section. And then I want to go into a few things that Allie talked about. So she's talked about record keeping and how important that was. And that is why you all have some sort of timesheet through your partner organization who has hired you. You have that, but then we also have the work log that Crystal talked about. So hopefully that will help with some of the kind of headaches that Allie was speaking to with keeping track of everything that you're doing over the summer, because that's very important for PLC to show what you did, how it supports an appropriate conservation project. And so that work log is really going to be your friend. And I think I had a question about that. I guess our hope with some of that is you can kind of take some of the stuff from your timesheet if you're kind of writing down what you're doing in your timesheet and just kind of copy and paste that over to your work log. They should hopefully be pretty similar. They are different. The timesheet is going to be through your partner organization. That's how they know your hours and how to pay you and all that. So that's separate from this work log. The next thing I want to hit on that Allie said is, so one of the ways that she found her PLC position is also through networking. So you can look through USA Jobs, but networking, find folks, meet as many people as you can, keep their numbers, keep in touch with them. Once you're gone, you have 2 years to use this hiring authority. So I just really want to promote that, meet as many people as you can. Yeah, Allie's nodding her head. It's very important. That's also helped me personally. I guess I should also say that I was also hired through PLC. And so networking was also a big part of that. So you can use USA Jobs, but also use the people around you. Tell your supervisor mentor that that's one of your work goals for the summer is, this is where I want to go in my career. So if you know anyone within MPS or DOI who does this, if you can get me in contact, if I can, get to know them, we can just kind of set up a meeting, add that into your work plan, because you're here to do this position, but you're also here to get some great mentoring from your MPS supervisors, mentors, and just know that that's part of your internship as well. So now I'm the one who's talked a long time. I want to go through some of these questions that I saw come in. Yeah, if you guys have questions, you can raise your hand and then we'll call on you and you can unmute yourself to ask. You can also put them in the chat box and we will answer them. Actually, some of these questions I see are program specific. So I may ask some of you to just kind of, when this call's over, go to your program leads and ask them. Someone says, for LHIP interns, does our time at the DC workshop count towards these hours? So this will be for LHIP and Mosaics interns.
Yes, those
Yes.
hours count. It's a work week.
Thank you, Sheila. Yes, so for those of you who are LHIP and Mosaics, and if anyone else has the career workshop in DC at the end, yes, that does count. I think this one hopefully answered is the app, basically their timesheet, the work log is the same as the work log, or will we have to enter the information again into a different document, separate document? I can kind of hit on that. You'll have your timesheet. Yeah, you will have your timesheet through your partner organization, through whoever has hired you, and then the work log is separate, but hopefully they're close enough that you can copy and paste those things.
I can add to that if it's possible.
Yeah, yes, of course, please.
So on the clock, when you put in your notes, you can't go back and copy and paste them at the end of the internship. So what you want to do is, like Allie suggested, she had a spreadsheet. So if you can do a spreadsheet, use your work plan as your spreadsheet, and then include the notes on that week of your work plan. You can include the notes that you copy in on the clock into that spreadsheet. So then you can use your spreadsheet for your PLC form. So like she said, start in your first or second week. You can use your work plan. It's in a spreadsheet already, and then copy the notes. And you can use it interchangeably. You can copy the notes in your spreadsheet and then go on the clock and put your hours in, or you can put your hours in and copy that into the spreadsheet. Either way, do it weekly. Do it daily if you can, but not everybody has office hours every day because they're in the field. So weekly is a good practice.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelda. Our next question, this is going to be another program specific one. Is there any way to apply for an extension or an internship in our internship before the June deadline? I don't know what program you're in. Ask your program lead that question because that's different for everyone. The next one's also program specific. It's asking about an education award, which is separate from PLC, but you should be good. You shouldn't have to worry about federally granted days off and meeting your education award. I think this is an SIP. So I'm speaking directly to whoever gets that, who's likely, and I assume it's an SIP intern who's on this call. So if that makes no sense to you, then it doesn't, it's something you don't need to worry about. Just FYI. Does anyone have any questions, want to raise their hand? I can't imagine there aren't more questions from folks. This is your time. We have many minutes left, and we really wanted to leave this so you all can ask questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
I just
ahead.
wanted to clarify the final presentation that we're meant to give at the end of our internship. That's happening in Washington, D.C., correct? At least for mosaics and LHIP.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Again, program specific. If this makes no sense to you, don't worry about it. I see David has his hand up.
Yeah, during my week here, we've been going to specific sites to go in the field, and then we return to the office to work. How do we? What's the format that we have to use to put that into the spreadsheet? Just individual things that we do during the day, or?
So I don't know if Crystal wants to answer this. We've kind of talked about this as far as for the work log part of it. Not everyone's is going to be the same. And so I don't know, do you still have that, Crystal, where we can kind of show the work log, just the preview of it? Okay, she's nodding her head. I think we've tried to make it flexible. So if there's like a task you do daily, you can just put daily, and then this is what I do, and this is roughly however many hours I did on that task throughout the entirety of my internship, right? But if, say, you spent, just a week working on, in the field, doing some very specific surveys, you can just say, this date through this date, it was roughly, 40 hours because it was a week, and this is what I did. So we're really trying to keep it flexible. Everyone's is going to look different. I would say if you have questions about something specific, then come to us about it. But I think it's going to be flexible because we understand each day looks different. Each hour looks different, and there's certain things you do every day. There's some that are just one-off. So we really try to keep it flexible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I'm working on 2 screens and my laptop. It took me a little while to get the slide up, but I hope you can see it.
Yeah, so like I said, we on here for dates, we put examples daily, weekly, or specific dates, because again, it just changes. And then the next column are kind of your work duties, what you did, how it relates to an appropriate conservation, how it relates to a conservation project. So our example is, say for a week, I planted native species to restore prairie lands. And that's what you did for a week. That's what you put in the second column. The third column is location. That's generally just going to be the park. If you'd like to get more specific as to where in the park that was, that's fine. But just saying the park that you're in is fine. And then the rough estimated hours worked on said project or task.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw another question. From Samantha, how do we navigate applying for jobs where the hiring official may not be familiar with PLC hires and if we're eligible? Crystal?
So that eligibility is something that you would select when you're applying for your jobs, and we get into more detail in another session that we do later in the year. But there's an eligibility question that's associated with public land court, and it's actually the HR office that verifies all of the information and eligibilities before they even get to the selecting official. So you don't need to worry, I guess, necessarily about the hiring official knowing about your PLC eligibility per se. But yeah, that experience will be on your resume. So you can definitely, as Ali said, highlight what you did.
I'm trying to see if anyone has their hand raised. No questions? I'm trying to think if I have any other little tidbits I wanted to add to help you all. The things to really make sure you all know. One of the big things we want you all to take away from this webinar is just what, oh, well, I'll finish my takeaways, and then I'm going to go to you, Tatiana. I see your hand. I'll go to you. Our big takeaways from this are we just want to make sure you guys have a general understanding of PLC. It's the beginning of your internship, so we want to make sure that you kind of have a good understanding as you start your internship, and what you need to be doing during this time. There's some other items that will come later, but for right now, keep doing your internship. Yay, awesome. Doing your great work, and then really just make sure that you document it and really make sure that you're meeting people and networking. So those are big takeaways from today. Tatiana, what is your question?
Yeah, just for clarification on what you were saying was that those forms, the public land corps work hours verification form, and then the work log itself, that's, you guys are still update, like we haven't, I don't know if EFTA has gotten, like LHIP has gotten those forms, those are still being updated is what you were saying?
Yes, they are so close. We really wanted to have them by this webinar. It just, things happened. Life happened, stuff happened, and it didn't get done. So they really should be done within like the next week, and we will send them to you all as soon as we have them.
Okay.
Yeah, apologies for that. We really wanted them out by today, but stuff takes longer than you want. But it just is what it is sometimes. So you guys should have those very, very soon.
So for the verification form one, do we give that to our supervisor now, or is that like at the end of the internship, we hand that over to them?
At the end.
Okay.
So the work log is what you need to work on now. And then the work hour verification, that will be the first page. You don't need to do until the end.
Okay, and then if you're doing multiple different, because I wouldn't be hitting the 640 this one, so then I would just keep that verification form with me, and then when I finish my hours, maybe a next internship kind of thing, then I have those together. Is what you're saying?
You would fill out another form for your next position. So, but yes, even if you don't, because there are a lot of folks on this call who have a 12-week internship, that you will not reach the 640 hours. With a 12-week internship. So that was a great question. So still fill out all of this, get your verification form signed, keep it, hold on to it. And then the next position that you do that is PLC eligible, you'll fill out another form. And hopefully with 2, you should easily meet that 640 hour requirement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if there are other questions that come in later, Chelsea, Ernestine, we can all get together and come up with answers for you all if you think of something later.
Yeah, everyone, please reach out to your program admin, your partner organization, your supervisor mentor. That's the other thing, is we are here to help you. This is why we're here. We really want to help you get hired. So please reach out to us. We are a resource. As Ali said, utilize us. That's what we're here for. If we don't know the answer, it may take us a minute to get back to you, but we'll figure it out. So I saw a couple questions.
Yeah, I don't know the volunteer hour thing.
I
I guess
don't know.
I don't know why we would have. I don't know. I think we might need to circle back on that one because how are they volunteer hours through the partner? Are these, yeah. Because you still have to be part of that qualifying youth or conservation corps when you're earning these hours. So I'm not sure that volunteering outside of you doing it through the partnership is what you're talking about.
Paloma has her hand up.
Paloma, do you have some insight on that?
Oh, no, I had a question. Hi, I'm Paloma with Waso Cultural Resources, and I just wanted to get confirmation for anyone doing cultural resources work, Crystal, that cultural resources work falls under the conservation category on the PLC form. I know that's a question I get because we may not use that terminology in cultural resources. Is that correct?
I guess we would need to look at what the actual work in the project is. Maybe we can talk to find out what actual the work is.
Okay.
If it's conservation, yeah.
It's usually conservation, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, yeah, yep. So
Yeah.
I don't know if Ernestine has any different information when we're actually talking about the actual program work. But
Yeah,
it
we can
sounds
talk
like
about that
would be-
offline here,
Yeah,
because that's kind of getting into maybe the little bit of the weeds, maybe.
but yeah, Paloma, keep that question, so. And then how do we know if there's a job or internship that is PLC eligible? So that goes back to the task agreement. Information will mention public land corps, but then you also have the requirements that it has to be that appropriate conservation project through the qualified conservation organization. But that's not something as a participant that you're completing. That is the section. Hold on, wonder if I can.
May I
share.
add to that, Crystal, that
Yes.
you all of you shouldn't have to worry about that. The program leads vet all of your projects prior to recruiting. So we're going to vet those and make sure that they qualify as a conservation project. Now, we don't know when you start your internship if the parks will change any of the scope of work. But prior to recruitment, we're vetting the project. So you shouldn't be concerned about that. By the time we recruit you, we're saying that it is a conservation project that qualifies for PLC.
Thanks, Ernestine. That was helpful.
Yeah, and I just showed the form where that information is kind of done through the partner organization and the supervisor.
We have a question, which is a good one. What is the main advantage of being PLC eligible?
Again, we kind of touched on it before when someone asked about the question about, is it a leg up? So basically during the federal hiring process, it's a competitive process where you're competing with the general public. If you have a non-competitive eligibility, you are not competing with the general public, and the selecting official can choose to use non-competitive certificates where all the people who have non-competitive eligibility are listed. They can choose to pick that person without going through that competitive process where you have to consider their score and all of their kinds of factors. So it is an advantage in terms of being more easily for the selecting official to select you without all of the competitive process steps.
So Crystal, how I've heard it talked about, but I'd like you to correct me if I'm wrong, is if you have PLC listed, like it's a position that's open to the public, but they accept PLC, you'll have different lists. And so PLC will just put you higher up.
It's not really a ranking like that. It's a different list. It's not necessarily higher than the other list.
So it separates them out.
Yes, it separates you out. Yes. And again, like I said, we're moving away from the nuances of running those on the same vacancy announcement because it can get a little confusing. So I think David had a question, and I'll probably have to go in about 5 minutes, everybody.
Yeah, let's
Sorry.
take, I'm writing down all of your questions. So if we don't get to them, everyone, we can reach out to you afterwards and help you out. But yeah, Crystal, why don't you answer David's question?
I had about 300-ish hours of volunteer time put in with the San Juan National Historic Site in Puerto Rico. Can I add those hours to the hours that I'm doing here?
I don't have the answer for that. We would probably need to get in contact with the coordinator in your region as well as the supervisor. And were you working with a qualified youth or conservation corps? I know this has come up before where people have done volunteer work or work outside of the actual organization, and it really needs to be worked through the organization, the qualified youth or conservation corps. So I don't have an exact answer for that. We would need to get some more detail on that, David. And maybe we can get your information and try to find out who the POCs for that would be.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I just put my contact information in there. Someone asked. So I will say that I am kind of the program person for PLC for mosaics who are on the call and for SIP interns who are on the call. If you are part of LHIP or cultural resources, I'd reach out to your person to get the information that's most helpful to you, and they can give you their contact information. I don't know if they just want to drop it in the chat and then say what program they're with.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah,
I
I'll
think
add
that
for
would be-
LHIP and HBCUI's Ernestine White, and I'm happy to share my information if you have additional questions.
Yes, and HBCU. I knew I was forgetting one. Thank you, Mercy. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I want to make sure that Crystal gets off on time. I see that we have a few more questions. I see a couple about looking for the work log. The work log is the form that we're still working on. It will be out to you in like a week max 2. So if you can't find it, it's because it's not released yet. We're just showing it to you on the screen, but we're having to make some final tweaks. So that's coming. I just want to answer something.
So someone had asked about, even if you're doing the internship with NPS, the PLC applies to any DOI agency. Yes, there are, it's department wide. So if you're trying to find a position for another bureau, they will also have some information on PLC listed in the vacancy announcement. But if you're doing a project through one of their PLC programs, that can be added as well. We are going to be seeing if we can get as close as possible to making sure that everybody's form is similar. The department overall has a general PLC policy, and there's specific information that needs to be on the work hours verification form that all bureaus go by. So it shouldn't be hard to transition that information to your NPS form.
Awesome. And I just want to say is like a final thing before we let you go. This webinar was really just meant for us to kind of start this conversation about PLC with you all for your summer internships, or if you have there may be some folks on here that have longer than that. But we were really just trying to hit you at the beginning of your internship term. So you have a good understanding. And like we said, you can start writing down the stuff on the work log when we give it to you in like a week. Again, we don't have that yet, but we just kind of want to let you know what it is. There's more to come, right? This is just kind of to get the conversation started. So again, please reach out to us. We'll take all of these questions in the chat and respond to you all. More information to come. We have other webinars discussing federal resume, USA job stuff more in depth. That's why Crystal didn't go into that today. We really just wanted to hit this part. More to come. Keep an eye out. Thank you all so much for joining. thank you all so much to our wonderful, wonderful speakers, Crystal and Allie, for sharing her experience as to kind of what it was like to go through the PLC process and get hired. So thank you all so much for coming. And yeah, huge, huge thank you to our speakers. This has been a group effort to get this going. We hope it was helpful for you. If you, again, if you still have questions, which I'm sure you do, reach out to us and we'll be getting back to you all.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.